Hello and good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. I'm Drew Clark with Broadband Breakfast, and I'm here today with Reg Weiser, who is the founder and CEO of Positron Access Solutions. We're talking here about some of the ways that Positron Access provides bandwidth to increase the connectivity over, I guess you'd call them difficult to reach connections because of existing wiring. Reg, tell us a little bit about what is Positron Access and what kind of solution are you solving?
Essentially, the last 800 feet is the hardest thing to get and the most expensive, particularly if you're in an MDU, because to wire, since 90% of buildings have been built more than 10, 15 years ago, they don't have a fiber infrastructure. And so putting fiber in could cost $600 to $800 per door. Essentially, we've solved that problem that the carriers can bring fixed wireless or fiber to the building, and we just take it at that entry point and we distribute it throughout the building to each unit, providing a full gigabit symmetrical bandwidth, which has not been accomplished before, certainly not at that type of distance, like 800 feet.
So you're saying a gigabit, a full gigabit up and down is available through Positron Access's system?
Absolutely. You test it on the speed test, you'll see it's a full gigabit upstream and a full gigabit downstream. And this is made possible through a G.hn technology with special software.
Let's get to that in just a second. I want to ask you about G.hn, but I first want to point out you've got this great 2-minute video on your website, and we'll put a link to it on this interview here, Reg, where you talk about the options that a building owner or a provider reaching a building has. And it's basically, number one, you rip up everything and install fiber to the unit at great costs and expense and disturbance. Two, you use a kind of a more traditional coaxial cable system, which has drawbacks, particularly on the upstream speed. Or three, you use a system with the technology you're using. And now I want to ask specifically, what is G.hn? What does that stand for, and is that unique to Positron?
It's home networking, and the technology, it's an ITU standard, and it was effectively evolved. Its first applications have been largely in homes. If you have a Wi-Fi extender over your power lines, that enables the Wi-Fi to be extended in your home. We've adapted that type of technology for use on telephone pairs and also on coax cable. And what was the difficult part there is eliminating the noise between pairs. And so we've developed special software, a vector boost, that effectively completely cancels the noise between pairs, enabling you to reach those bandwidth speeds even at such distances.
So, for example, you've got something you call the GAM, and you've got a nice name for that. Could you tell me what GAM stands for?
The Gigabit Access Multiplexer.
Okay, so it's a GAM, a Gigabit Access Multiplexer, a GAM 12 and a GAM 24. What do these two devices do? Without going into huge detail technically, what do they do to enable this over an apartment or MDU's wiring?
Well, first of all, it's in various sizes, 12-port, 24-port. It also is available in smaller, in outdoor versions, 4-port, 8-port kind of thing. And what it effectively does is it converts the signaling that comes into it. You can take up to 2 10-gigabit inputs to the device, and it will then convert it to G.hn. You just need to put it near where the wiring closet is, and you put the wiring to it and the wiring that goes to all of the residents or businesses, if it's businesses, and it'll send it using G.hn technology with the noise cancellation, and reconverts in that little box the size of a deck of playing cards at the subscriber's end into gigabit Ethernet speeds. So it's completely oblivious to what's there. It's compatible with every gateway. It's fully compatible with the network in every way and transparent effectively.
Well, it sounds like you've been able to do something that others have tried to do or attempted to do. Obviously, some countries that have shorter loop lengths have had, or at least traditionally had, greater success with DSL technology than the United States has had, where longer loop lengths, in my understanding, have made it very challenging to get high speeds out of DSL. Obviously, DSL is now, in my opinion, a dated technology. It's not something anyone really wants to use. But to be clear, what the GAM, the Gigabit Access Multiplier, is doing is enabling a full gigabit up and down to be reached. You've got to get a gigabit in somewhere, right? You've got to have, fiber connecting in to some access point, don't you, Reg?
The access point is right into a port of our device, just via an SFP. And effectively, what we do is we eliminate all of the construction work. We don't touch it, so it's scalable. You can install a whole building in a matter of hours and be delivering gigabit to everyone, or for that matter, control it to any bandwidth you want per subscriber. You can give them guaranteed service. And so it effectively reduces the cost to 20% of the cost of having to rewire the building with fiber. And you're getting your bandwidth instantly. It is economical to do, even if you have a low take rate initially, because of its scalability. The wiring is already there. Lowest capex, fastest time to revenues. It's sort of a dream. And what this basically does is enable carriers to bring all these residents on much faster than otherwise would be possible, without all of that heavy capex up front. And of course, it's great for subscribers, and it's also much less costly to execute.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the markets that you are in and that you are seeking to expand in. Is this a MDU, multiple dwelling unit product, Reg? Is it also suitable for rural environments? Could you just kind of square that out a little bit? Where do you see Positron Access's strength being?
Well, our strength is that we deliver it over long distances. Now, those distances could be in MDUs. It could be with outdoor units to home clusters or groups of homes. It can also be, it's especially usable in rural areas, particularly in an application like RDOF, where effectively you can take an input from the fiber junction at the road, and you can save having to bring fiber through the person's property, digging, excavating, or overhead. It not only using the existing wiring to the home, but since the existing wiring enters the home, you don't have to take fiber and bring it into the home. So the time to deploy it in a rural environment, you save massively. You don't need the extra manpower, and at a cost 70% less than if you were to do it. So as long as you bring fiber or fixed wireless at a junction point, we'll take it from there all the way into the residences. And still give you a gigabit symmetrical, as long as you're within like the 800 feet. And then it deteriorates slowly. I mean, you can still, we're starting off at 1.7 gigabits to each home. So this is, now, if you use coax units, I should mention that our coax units work over coax cable, and even with existing splitters, up to 16 splitters per port. That means that 20, if you have a 24 pair unit, you can do 24 times 16 homes or residences, effectively, and the whole thing is just instantaneous and very well managed.
I want to ask you about a particular success story that you've enabled. I understand there's a complex Main Street Connect in Montgomery County, Maryland, that you've worked on. Do you have any stories or case studies that come from this or other projects that showcase how Positron Access's solution is enabling people to get higher performance at lower costs?
We have many case studies, and we're now used by over 40 carriers and many ISPs. This example is a very good one at Montgomery County, where they had low-cost housing that they wanted to provide free internet service to underprivileged or disadvantaged or disabled people in that regard. And they had Verizon in there. They had they had a large cable company, and we were able to use the existing wiring. They selected us for the free broadband that they put in, where we worked over in that case over the existing coax to be able to provide. We could provide a gigabit to each resident, but they're providing 50 megabits symmetrical to each resident. People would have to pay for more. And this was the lowest cost solution by far, and they were able to get it up very instantly. We were working there with Plume and Cisco.
Well, these are and to close out on that, what's replicable about it? I presume everything, right? I mean, you're able to do this in building after building. It's really mostly just making sure people understand that there is an alternative to having to tear down walls to build fiber to the apartment. You're able to literally get through your G.hn gigabit home network, as I understand it, technology. You're able to boost up those speeds through connectivity using the Positron Access solution.
That's true, and just a point of information: the coax version will give you a gigabit at 2,600 feet, which is quite a distance. So we work to use the existing wiring or cabling, saving the last bit of copper, and even fixed wireless is if you're taking that, you can take fixed wireless to the building. That's a good feed. If you're using fixed wireless in rural areas, then to getting a home, you have to put an antenna in the home. You save all of that, and just and save massively on the labor. And you only put in what you need as you need it, so that even if you have a very low subscriber take rate, you could be instantly profitable. And what we do is we found that we started doing something which is letting people try units for free, because they didn't believe that performance was possible. And then when they test it, they say, "Yep, it really does what you say it does." So we've got many references, many stories in all kinds of environments.
Reg, it's been wonderful to talk with you. Let's close on a little bit of a word about yourself. You are, of course, the founder of Positron Access, and you are yourself, as I understand it, an engineering specialist who has been on the board of the Canadian Network for the Advancement of Research, Industry and Education, CANARY, organization I'm familiar with, and you're also a Quebec Entrepreneur of the Year. Tell us a little bit about how you founded this company and what led you to the insight that created it.
Well, that's a long story, because I founded it first like Positron Inc. I founded the company with an initial capital investment of $20. So I like to joke, imagine if I had $100 at the time. And gradually what we did is we did develop custom solutions for large entities, and some of them seemed interesting, and we gradually evolved from one to another. And Positron Access, or the initial thing that we did do is we created Positron Fiber Systems, which we took public on NASDAQ, then privatized. Then it was ended up being sold to Marconi, that ended up having financial difficulties, and we bought it back for 2% of what we sold it for, and then converted that into Positron Access Solutions, where we developed this technology. We always really wanted to specialize in increasing bandwidth available to people, seeing it as a great need, and we're virtually on a mission. One of the things I would say is this is not a luxury. This is an absolute necessity. We're competing against China and other places, and we need to have the best tools at our disposal. And we don't want a lost generation with our children, a forgotten generation, and we want to have all the tools at our disposal to compete very effectively in it's been found that in Europe, it was reported that for every 10% increase in bandwidth, it increases the GDP by 1.2%, which is significant in communities or in countries. So in fact, they've even demanded that any country that wanted to become a member of the EU has to have a minimum bandwidth standard across the country. So it is essential that we do this very quickly. It's not just a luxury, but an essential for our economic well-being.
Well, those are wonderful words for us to end on. On behalf of Reg Weiser of Positron Access, I'm Drew Clark with Broadband Breakfast. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you very much.